Mr. Braun, why don't we begin with you?
I'm going to step out to the restroom.
Madam Chairman, Co-Chairman Grassley, Senator Whitehouse, others gathered here today, my esteemed colleagues, our co-panelists, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. Senator, you were talking about, or in your opening comments, you mentioned a major operation back in May that the DEA, our Afghan counter-narcotics police, and our military forces undertook in Afghanistan. Let me bring you up to date just a little bit with a more recent example. Just last week, those same organizations raided a heroin lab in southern Afghanistan, and seized at the lab was 1.8 metric tons of heroin and morphine, and that's a big haul in anyone's book. You have been around these hallowed halls for quite some time now. You know narcotics trafficking very, very well, and you understand that is a big haul. What's more troubling about that particular operation, though, was the laboratory was not simply being guarded by the Taliban, it was being operated by the Taliban. My point being is I believe that the Taliban is rapidly evolving into what I refer to as a truly hybrid terrorist organization. They're one part designated terrorist organization, but they are becoming a global drug trafficking powerhouse. What's most amazing about that particular operation also, Senator, is that right along with the drugs, there were IEDs, IED bomb-making materials. There was Taliban propaganda, including training manuals and the like. And this is a scenario that the DEA, our special forces, and our brave Afghan counterparts have seen on numerous occasions over the past couple years since our military has become more heavily involved in supporting law enforcement in taking the fight to the traffickers and the Taliban. What we're seeing, I'm convinced, is not only an unmistakable but an unequivocal convergence of drugs and terrorism.
Where exactly was the lab?
It was in southern Afghanistan.
In which province? Kandahar?
I believe it was in Kandahar province, I believe. And in fact, I received a phone call from one of my former colleagues or partners at DEA. There was another lab hit in southern Afghanistan within the past 48 hours. 10 Taliban were killed. This was a raid conducted by U.S. Special Forces and DEA in support of the Afghan counter-narcotics police and Afghan Army commandos. Another recent example, we're seeing this over and over and over again. Again, these folks aren't just providing security anymore, they're now involved in wholesale production. This is nothing new. We've seen this, we've seen the same evolutionary process, if you will, happen to the FARC in our Western Hemisphere, the remnants of the AUC, the ELN, as well as Sendero Luminoso in Peru. You're hearing from a retired federal narcotics officer, so that's the kind of perspective you're going to get today. I've served in a number of nasty places around the globe, up close and personal, going against bad guys. That's the kind of perspective you're going to get from me. But one thing that I do want to mention is this is not just based on my past experience, this growing convergence of drugs and terrorism. I stumbled across a study a couple of years ago that was conducted at Stanford University in California. Professor James Farron identified and studied 128 insurgencies and civil wars from just after the end of World War II until the year 2000. The name of the study was "Why Some Wars Last Longer Than Others." And what the professor found is during this period, these 128 insurgencies and civil wars, of those 128, on average, they lasted about 8 years in length. All of them, on average. However, he isolated and identified 17 that lasted at least 5 times longer than the other 111. The only common thread that was running through those 17 where those anti-government forces generated their own contraband revenue. My point being is I have been convinced for a long, long time, and I have shared this over and over with a number of combatant commanders and other high-ranking personnel from DOD over the past several years and our intelligence community. We're not going to get out of Afghanistan, or we're not going to win the fight. We may get out, but we're not going to win the fight unless we provide the same level of passion and vigor against the drug trafficking activity and drug production activity in that country as we are in fighting terrorism and the insurgency. Thank you very much. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Braun.